welcome to the Newsdesk Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, we're in the middle of a very interesting assembly election. The assembly elections are going to start. The campaigning is already on, full on, and of course, we've also seen the battles being fought at the state level and also with their repercussions at the center. In fact, there is more to this assembly election than just state polls. More so for this round, I know that we say that for every election, but this round, especially the state of West Bengal, where we see literally the Prime Minister Modi coming up against an opposition leader. And this is one leader who is actually giving him a fight. We've heard it said that no election really has been local ever since 2014, ever since he became Prime Minister. But at least there have been a couple of interesting standoffs and fights, and this is going to be one of them. The same happens is true for Kerala, where Rahul Gandhi has really put his stake over there on that battle. Will he be able to win the Kerala for the Congress or not? Because that is really going to decide the leadership pattern of the opposition, if not the government, of course. So joining me on the roundtable to discuss how increasingly state polls are becoming more national and more presidential, I have joining me Dr. Sanjay Baru. He is an author, he is a commentator and a policy analyst. Neerja Chaudhary, she's a columnist, soon to be an author also, we are told. And of course, she's a political analyst. Sanjay Jha, former Congress spokesperson, familiar face on television and an author. Rama Lakshmi, she is the opinion editor at The Print. Dr. Baru, it's like I said, all elections are now becoming more and more presidential. This is the Modi effect, because we've seen even smaller candidates at the state level also are trying to, like Stalin, for instance, he's trying to develop a larger than life personality. So personality is more and more coming into play, more than ever.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's giving Mr. Modi too much credit. I mean, at the state level, we've had personality-based politics for a long time. I come from Andhra Pradesh, where N.T. Ramarao took on Indira Gandhi in 1981. We've seen Annadurai taking on Indira Gandhi in 1960s. So we've had a lot of powerful state leaders taking on national leaders in the past. Charan Singh in Uttar Pradesh. So it's not a new phenomenon in Indian politics that you have regional leaders who challenge a national leader, and therefore what is happening today with Bengal, etc., is really playing out of regionalism versus national politics or national leader. To me, it is also Hindu majoritarian politics of the BJP versus this regional identity of the Bengali in Bengal, of the Tamil in Tamil Nadu, or the Malayali in Kerala. These are all important identities in India. They've always been important political identities. So I wouldn't give Mr. Modi the credit of beginning any new phase in Indian politics. And as far as Tamil Nadu is concerned, in fact, Tamil Nadu is interesting that for the first time we actually have normal politics. It's not Jayalalitha versus Karunanidhi or MGR versus Karunanidhi. It is AIDMK versus DMK. And in that sense, I think Tamil Nadu is for the first time going to have very normal politics.
Rama, we've seen the battle, for instance, in West Bengal, where Modi versus Mamta is really becoming, there is a state battle, but he's also taking it to a national battle. And in this, the personalities of the two campaigners, really, both of them play the politics of victimhood. Both of them are great mass leaders. I mean, for once, you would say that Modi is meeting his match, or at least in the West Bengal.
I would say that, yes. Modi, you're right. Every election, Modi kind of deploys all his political capital since 2014, whether it's a municipal election or in Delhi or a state election. So he deploys it. So what that does in the state is it raises the stakes for the regional opponent or the regional leader. And that's when a lot of spin mastering and image building, and so every election since 2014, if you can see, is fought on steroids. It's just high volume, high decibel, and there are brand gurus who are brought in. There is an iPad so it's also raised the amount of money that is poured into elections, not just during campaign and election, but even before that in image building. Coming to West Bengal, yes, they both can play the victim card very well, but in West Bengal, Modi is not really playing the victim card. She is. But the interesting thing here is Modi can play both victor and victim. He can be the strong leader, but he can also be the one who's an outsider who's trying to get in or who's been discriminated against. And he can play it like no other politician because he has an arc. Like Abraham Lincoln had an arc, which is the log cabin, humble beginnings to the president. So any leader who's able to show the arc can play both the victim, the outsider, and the insider very well. And that's what Modi has over anybody else today. Someone like Rahul Gandhi doesn't have that arc. So he cannot say, I come from humble roots. So he is what he is. In West Bengal, yes, it is Modi versus Mamata, but I think the person who's probably staked it all is not Modi in West Bengal, it's Amit Shah. If BJP delivers in West Bengal, it will be to Amit Shah's credit because he's the one who's basically put himself out there. It's his election to win or lose, not really Modi's.
No, but is it West Bengal's election is Amit Shah's hard work strategy, whatever? But what is going to swing the election? Is it Amit Shah? Is it Modi? And also, what Rama was talking about, the various shades of Modi that he deploys on the campaign. We've seen. So which Modi are we seeing in West Bengal?
I don't think I've seen this kind of an intensive. Modi's campaign in Gujarat made a difference in the last lap. Modi campaigned very hard in Uttar Pradesh and made a difference. But I have not seen this kind of an intensive campaigning and preparation that's gone on for 3 long years for West Bengal. And I sometimes wonder why, and as a result of which Mamata Banerjee has become the issue in Bengal. She's the center point of the campaign today. Everything else has become secondary. Now, why is that? I mean, the Prime Minister addressing 20 meetings, the Home Minister of India addressing as many as 50 meetings, the entire BJP there. Why is it? I think, of course, it's a large state, 42 Lok Sabha seats. It's the gateway to the east. But I think more important than that, there are 2 reasons as I see it. One, that today Mamata Banerjee is the only leader in the opposition who's a mass leader and who's the most strident of Narendra Modi's critics. No holds barred. And if they can defeat somebody like Mamata Banerjee, it will completely demoralize the opposition. If on the other hand, Mamata gets through, then it will give new heart to the opposition, entire opposition. So I think the stakes are there. There is another reason. I think Modi is campaigning very hard because they have 2024 in mind vis-a-vis Bengal. If they got 18 seats, Lok Sabha seats in 2019 from West Bengal, they hope to sweep that state. So they have their eyes set there. So I think that is one reason why Modi is, larger than life, even for, by his standards. But I would say one other thing, Priya, and that is in the 2021 state assembly elections, identification with a leader has become even more important than in the past. You see, Bengal is one case in point. You see Assam. There is growing unhappiness with the BJP, and there is the Congress and its allies are picking up, but the absence of a clear chief ministerial face is a real disadvantage. So also in Kerala, the absence of a clear face who will be a future chief minister, fielded by the Congress party as head of the UDF to take on LDF, which surveys say has an edge in Kerala. That is also a disadvantage. You look at Tamil Nadu, you have a Stalin there, and opposite Stalin is Edapadi Palaniswamy. Palaniswamy has really moved very well. He has taken along with him Paneerselvam. He's managed to deal with Shashikala. So he's managed to deal with the factionalism in his party. He's handled the COVID situation well. Overall, he's being viewed, in a good light, and it has really stepped into Jayalalitha's shoes very effectively. So the contest is very close, at least seen to be close. I think Stalin has an edge, but seen to be close in Tamil Nadu, again, because of a clear leader. So I think clear chehra, leadership chehra, which is credible, and has the confidence of the people, does make a difference in elections and is increasingly making a difference in elections. And Modi is part of that. Modi is, as I say, a larger than life figure in that scheme of things.
Sanjay, I'd like to take one point that Neerja made, the impact of this election, not just Mamta versus Modi, but it's also going to have an impact on the opposition strategy. And since you are here as not just the opposition, the larger opposition, but also the opposition within, if I may say so. So what is, if, for instance, Mamta does manage to defeat Modi in West Bengal, what message does that send to the opposition? Will there be some kind of rethinking? Will she play a larger role at the center? And what if Rahul doesn't deliver in Kerala?
No, I think very pertinent questions, Priya. But before I answer that, the larger point that you made at the very introduction, are Indian elections becoming highly presidential? Now, I know this has been discussed in a very animated fashion by all of us in the media and outside, that, Mr. Modi has changed the entire nature of this aggressive political personality campaign. But the truth is that parliamentary democracy is always quasi-presidential. I mean, just because we are a parliamentary democracy doesn't mean that vote catchers aren't the front runners. I mean, ultimately, as Neerja pointed out, that exactly establishes the point. The absence of a figurehead who's going to lead the government is always a critical aspect of voting preferences. So, you can't ignore that reality. So I agree with Sanjay once again that it is true that Mr. Modi has perhaps, raised it to another stratospheric level. But the fact that personalities have a big role to play in Indian politics has actually been there from time immemorial. In fact, one of the reasons why the Gandhis are such a huge political brand within the Congress, or why the Congress suffers from this major dynastic hangover, is because the Gandhis have won it for the Congress. I know for a fact, and I'm not bullshitting you here, that many Congress people won seats simply because Mrs. Gandhi and Rajiv and other people just campaigned. Simple, that's about it. Nobody even knew who the candidate was. Today, for example, in Mumbai, I live in South Mumbai. If you were to do a dipstick research, 90% of the people won't know who's the Congress MLA. They've just voted because there's a BJP and Mr. Modi. That's it. So, but to answer your question on the opposition, I do believe that this election is a more serious, shall we say, opportunity or probably a disincentive for the opposition. Because if the opposition does well, which is, in my opinion, principally Assam and West Bengal, because the left of the Congress is winning Kerala, DMK and Congress should be home in Tamil Nadu, and eventually Puducherry. Well, let's see where that goes. But I think it's really West Bengal and Assam that will create the headline on May 2nd. And the Congress, in my opinion, probably has a bigger existential statement to make on May 2nd. One is because Kerala is a state which is a swing state, moves after 1987 from one to the other. If Mr. Vijayan, again, using your question, his own personality and brand is able to withstand the UDF onslaught, well, that's going to be a significant outlier. As far as West Bengal is concerned...
Let me interrupt. This is, I think the print called him Modi in a Mundu. I read an article referring to the Kerala Chief Minister's act.
Yeah. And therefore, Priya, I do believe that Mamata is the last formidable bastion of the opposition, which is trying to hold on to West Bengal. Now, we don't know where that is headed. It's very difficult to prognosticate on a West Bengal result today. But the truth remains that for the Congress, which is now very peripheral in West Bengal, Assam is a little do or die. And I agree with what Neerja mentioned. The gap is narrowing, but that is the one state where there's a BJP versus Congress confrontation. So if the Congress were to defeat the BJP, and don't forget the Congress still had the largest vote share in 2016 at 31%. So if the Congress alliance, which is a good alliance, is able to defeat the BJP, it not only gives us a competitive edge, and I'm using us in a very liberal sense, I don't know whether Congress will approve of that, but the truth is that it also brings the CA NRC issue center stage again, and the Congress may just use that platform to woo back the minority votes who have been deserting the party of late.
We're going to take a break and come back and also take a look at what is really at stake, the larger pictures, in keeping in mind, especially from the opposition's point of view. But after a quick break. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Dr. Varun, I want to take that question to you. The larger stakes here for the opposition, really, in the coming elections, what is at stake? How do you see, if the results pan out? If supposing the Congress doesn't fail to win, that Assam, especially Assam and Kerala, West Bengal, of course, is piggybacking on, in Tamil Nadu, is piggybacking on an ally, and Mamata Banerjee wins West Bengal. Do you see some kind of a shift on the opposition, or will it be business as usual?
No, Mamata Banerjee's return to power in West Bengal will be a turning point in Indian politics. It can well be the beginning of a reconfiguration of the non-BJP political parties.
You've been saying that earlier also, I remember. That's why I asked you.
I was the first person to say that Mamata Banerjee is the only one with the potential to create an anti-Modi coalition. I said this to you on your show 5 years back, right? In 2015 or 16. And I've had that view right through. I've not changed that view because for a very simple reason that you do not have anywhere else in the country today a regional leader with a very strong regional personality. The United States of Andhra Pradesh produced N.T. Ramarao, but the breakup of the state has created these two leaders who are not big enough to become national leaders, neither Jagan nor Chandrasekhar Rao. Where are the others? Sharad Pawar is compromised beyond repair. So where are the other regional leaders who have the potential to even become the fulcrum of some kind of a reconfiguration of a non-BJP coalition? I see that Mamata Banerjee has the potential, provided she wins, and she wins convincingly in Bengal. If the BJP comes to power in Bengal, then we are going to see BJP back in Delhi in 2024 unless the economy really tanks in the next 2 years and there's a lot of social unrest, etc. But I don't really see that happening. So I think this election, particularly the Bengal result, is critical. Now, if the Congress does well, it will stabilize the Congress internally, given that it is so divided and all this challenge to Rao's leadership will end, he will become party president, and the Congress will try to move forward. But I do not see the Congress being the fulcrum of the non-BJP alliance. Congress cannot play the role it played in 2004 when Sonia Gandhi was the fulcrum of the UPA. That role I don't see Rahul Gandhi being able to play. Rather, Mamata can become a kind of a Chandrasekhar or a VP Singh, or even an NTR who created the National Front, don't forget. So I think this election is very, very critical for the way in which national politics will evolve in the next 2 years.
And Rama, take that thought further. The role of the opposition, the impact these elections will have on the opposition.
Mostly because these elections will be followed in a couple of months.
We lost her.
Neeta, Rama, are you back? No, we lost her. Okay, Neeta, can you take that question? The impact on the opposition of the elections?
I think the stakes are huge for the opposition. More for the opposition than for the BJP, I would say.
Yeah.
And central to that is what happens in West Bengal. I agree with the others. And Mamata Banerjee today is really the front of the entire opposition. It's very interesting that Sharad Pawar should back her in Bengal, Tejasvi Yadav should back her in Bengal, Aam Aadmi Party's Kejriwal should back her, Akhilesh Yadav should back her. So various opposition leaders, not that they have any standing or the party has a hold in West Bengal. But under the surface, I think there is the beginning, I agree with Sanjay here, there is the beginning of an opposition unity that's started to take place. And I think somewhere the regional parties have come to the conclusion, and Sanjay, I disagree with you on one point of ruling out Sharad Pawar. Whatever be his background, whatever be his politics, he's an extremely important and a key figure today as far as getting the opposition together is concerned. So the thinking, I think, is that we go ahead with a non-Congress UPA. If Mamata Banerjee wins Bengal, she will become the face of the opposition And she's gutsy. She's without a coming from a political family, without a mentor, having got the better of the left, having replaced Congress as the real Congress in West Bengal. We know all that she's done. But this is her toughest battle so far. And I think also a battle she's waging on behalf of the opposition. So I think if they come together, a UPA minus Congress, then they will do business with the Congress. You want to come, you come, we'll deal with you at a state level. I think what they are planning for is not so much 2024 at the center. What they're planning for is to get states under their belt, as many states as possible. And from that point of view, I think what happens in Kerala, what happens in Tamil Nadu, what happens in Assam, all that matters. But so it is very critical, to answer your question in short. This is more important for the opposition, very critical, what happens in West Bengal 2021 on May 2, what we see.
Rama, good to have you back. You want to take the question on the impact on the opposition, and what happens if everybody loses, if the opposition loses in the key states, which is of course Assam and West Bengal?
So I don't know how much you've heard. Two things.
Again.
One is that for Rahul Gandhi, it'll obviously embolden him. He's spending more time in the south than he is in the east right now, because he needs to show a couple of wins before he gets ready for his own power struggle within the party that is slated for this summer, right? So he wants to show that he can deliver. So for internally, Rahul Gandhi, it is a very important election internally. I don't think
Kerala or West Bengal?
Whatever win he can deliver right now. And he will win a few seats in both the southern states. So that's what he's focusing on more, because he wants to show, like, I deployed myself in the southern states and this is what I delivered, which is why he's not so visible in West Bengal and Assam. He is, but not as much. The second thing is, I think if they make significant inroads in West Bengal, they're going to look at Orissa. They're going to look at Andhra Pradesh. After in the south, they look at Andhra Pradesh. They have the next bastions. This is how the BJP plans. They look at the next bastion. They start inching. They're not really looking to take over these governments, these states, but they start inching. It's like salami style. So what China does. So they inch. They increase their vote shares. West Bengal is definitely a signal to Orissa. Right, and some inroads in Kerala and Tamil Nadu is a signal to Andhra Pradesh, and because they've already got the northeast, they have broken that bastion. They need to get into the east bastion. So they are really thinking about the signaling for the next set of elections.
Sanjay, you have the answers to the question that I think Neerja and even Rama and all of us hinted at, is what happens if the Congress doesn't win, if it notches up a zero? What is happening within the Congress? What is the G23 planning?
Well, I have a great deal of respect for both Dr. Badu and Neerja. I disagree with them to some extent on saying that the Congress will not be the linchpin of an opposition unity initiative post West Bengal or whatever till 2024. You see, if you look at the electoral math of India, there are roughly around 200 odd seats, Lok Sabha seats, whereas the BJP and the Congress are principal combatants in those states. I mean, by that I'm talking about Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, Himachal. You add them up, they are broadly around 195 to 200 seats, and some of them they may even have an alliance partner of sorts. Now, typically if the Congress and the BJP are going head to head in nearly 200 seats, to say that the Congress cannot and will not be the fulcrum of bringing an entire ragtag coalition together is most unlikely. You see, this is why even despite a disastrous performance in 14 and 19, the Congress still remains the largest opposition party. I know it's notional, but it is the largest. So I think at the end of the day, the question is there going to be an acceptable face of the Congress that can drive the UPA, which is why you're seeing this new political confabulation where people are beginning to talk about, Sharad Pawar. And I think Dr. Badu is right and Neerja is right. Mamata could become a terrific candidate if the West Bengal triumph results in the TMC's favor. So I do believe that where the Congress is concerned, and I'm part of the G23, so I'll be very vocal here. For Rahul, I think this is the litmus test. If Kerala is lost by the Congress, for whatever reason, I mean, don't forget that the Congress had done remarkably well in the Lok Sabha elections 2 years ago. But Mr. Vijayan has used the floods and COVID and other issues to, override the headwinds of, the gold smuggling scam and all the corruption. So, but if Kerala doesn't move, the optics are terrible for Rahul, because for the first time, Kerala will not swing to the Congress after losing it 5 years ago. And now he's an MP from Wayanad. Even where Assam is concerned, it's the same story. And we have, let me be honest, we have surrendered the fight in West Bengal. We are hoping that the anti-TMC votes will come to the Congress so that we are able to prop up a TMC government with some degree of support from the left and the Congress. This is, pretty much wishful thinking, but let's see how that plays out. The Congress, there's a lot at stake. For the opposition, yes. But I think for Mamata Banerjee, this could be an election where she's actually catapulted into the national stage as an alternative to Narendra Modi.
So we'll see maybe a new national politics is going to have impact. Yeah, Rama, quickly, you want to come in?
I just wanted to make a point that whether it offers a national alternative or brings together, forges the opposition together or not, we don't know. But if a Mamata Banerjee and a Stalin wins, if definitely if a Mamata Banerjee wins, it will change the shape of campaigning. It will change the shape of style of politicking, which is high drama, high visibility, all the dramatics, the theatrics that she pulls in. Because in this attention economy, algorithmic politics, this is what matters, because Modi rules the algorithmic politics right now of eyeballs, right, on WhatsApps. So that's what, if she's giving that tucker, then everybody will start aping that same election and campaigning style.
Prashant Kishore will have a whole lot more jobs, people lining up for him, since both are his candidates. But that's it for now, and I'm going to use this occasion to announce Dr. Baru's new book that is coming out, I think, on India's Spa Elite, which will be a very interesting commentary and maybe take this conversation further. I know there's a formal launch sometime next month, but I took this opportunity since you are here.
Looking forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. Congratulations, Dr. Baru, and I'm sure it was not written accidentally.
Thank you. Do read all of it.
Well, we'll give Sanjay the last word on that. But thank you all of you, and thank you for watching this show. We'll see you again same time next week.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.